starting to build choppers again. You know, they think it's 1960 again, and that's okay. It's when bikes were cool.
Me, Larry, and Jesse were, like Jesse says, we were the three aliens. You know, we were the freaks building the choppers, and everyone, oh, you guys are gonna have bad backs and blah blah blah, and you know, we don't give a flying fuck, you know. We just want to have a great time. I'm Steg Von Heintz, and I'm from New York City, and I play guitar, I build motorcycles, and I build motors that go really fast. And I got myself a BSA, and it was like not what I wanted, you know. I had always wanted a Harley. I remembered these two guys when I was young. They were the Harley guys in my hood, and they were cool and badass, man. They wore all black and tight jeans that were like straight-legged, and boots, and you know, they looked like they could kick ass, you know. And they had long hair, and they just looked badass, and they had nice fucking bikes. I know one was a Panhead. I think the other might have been a Shovel, but just black and chrome, you know, just that you looked at it and it was like, yeah, that's a bike. And when they fired those things up, you know, they came to life. They didn't just putt, they fucking rumbled. You heard them 3 blocks away, you know. I would get up to look, you know. And I remember those guys like beat a kid, you know. But then that was like, it was like, I want a freaking Harley, man. That's what I gotta have. And I happened to be living in the right place on the right street, you might say. And I got a little tour of history, you know, and I was able to get a frame, you know, from a club and get my parts, and then those guys actually helped me out getting that thing together. And it was painted by a member of that club, yeah. And so that was really cool, and that was the start. All my friends had bikes, and then we started building rigids for them. They were getting rid of their sporties and whatever they had, you know, or they had super glides, and we were turning them into chops, you know. And just a little scene started. It was really cool. There was this club called the Rogue Animals, and it was just a handful of guys. And they wore all black, and they wore Nazi helmets with the little SS. And one of the requirements for that club was you had to have a long bike, a chopper, a real like long bike chopper. And they would come down the street, man, and they looked so nasty and cool, just cruising down the road together, you know, and those things like that. And one guy had a whole bike, and they were big too, big guys. They looked like a real dirty 60s biker club, you know. Badass motherfuckers, they looked so cool. And the one guy, his whole bike was done like a tiger. And it was a Panhead motor, all polished up and everything. And it was just long and low. Looked bad, man. There was some cool shit, you know.
Willies Tropical tattoo, the chopper show during Daytona. It's the greatest chopper show. It's probably one of the greatest chopper shows on this continent. Probably one of the best ones. It's chaos. I mean, it's what's really chaos is watching Willie 24 to 48 hours before the chopper show, because the stress level, and we've got to get this done, and hey, you want to go eat? Let's go eat. I'm like, I thought we had to get this done. Yeah, we got to get this done. Let's go down here and eat some Mexican food. And then the morning of, I mean, he's up and rolling and running around, and people are just rolling in, and they just keep rolling in, and the Daytona police have to like park in the median because the street is just, it's chaos. It's just chaos. There's hundreds of motorbikes, and there's hundreds of people, and there's live music, and it's just a truly great event. It really is.
Steg is an interesting character. English Tom was a big buddy of mine, even though we really didn't get together that much. And of course, Don would complain about Steg all the time. But I've only met him the once when he came to the smokeout, and he was a very, very intriguing character indeed. And his bike is real nice. You know, it's another one of those bikes for the ages. You know, Maxine doesn't change.
If anyone was a founding father, I'd have to say it was me and Don, because SD was the chopper spot at that point, that spot we had in the alley. It all came together in this alley in Queens. There was always that friendly competition, because me and Don, it was SD Cycles, that was Steg and, that was actually Steg and Don. That was before actually right before I hooked up with Larry. And there was another partner, a guy by the name of Randy, who had come in, and we had Psycho. That was going to be a little retail place in the city. And when we split the partnership, I got Psycho and he got SD. Don was always like, he kind of became a writer and kind of was this, you know, MC ringleader kind of guy. Don's talents lied in other spots, you know, and definitely a talented, interesting individual. And you got to remember, there was always all sorts of. We all had our moments, and we had our moments together. And sometimes we hated one another, but there was also, you might catch us all in a hating on one another moment, but if you step to any one of us, you were going to get pounded out by everybody, because it just wasn't going to happen. You know, so there was still that loyalty and that brotherhood.
Steg's great. He's awesome. He's my hero. Just a complete fucking the coolest nutbag I know. He's fucking everything he does is a work of art.
I owned Psycho Cycles for 10 or 12 years with Indian Larry, and then I worked with, that was with Paul Cox and Knucklehead Steve and Paul Spradlin. All that was a magic time. Everybody knew everyone. You know, it's funny, you didn't have the internet, but that's how you knew one another or met one another. In real life, you would make friends with people who owned shops. I'm still friends today with guys I knew from years and years ago from the swap meets that they met me again online and were like, hey Steg, remember we used to come see you and Larry whenever you guys were in Pennsylvania? I remember you. You know, now they got kids that are grown up and have kids, and those kids know about us and, you know, have written me, you know, oh, you were a big inspiration because, you know, my dad still has your picture of your bike hanging on the wall. I know some people through what we did, you know, 3 generations now. It's crazy, you know.
It's kind of awesome.
Yeah, it is kind of wild, you know. These were the real deal guys, you know, and we knew these guys, man. I wish I could find, they must be fucking dead by now. But they were these 2 old timers. Me and Larry used to see them. They would come with this beat up fucking van. They were from Pennsylvania. And they would rip out. They always had Indian shit and early flathead, knucklehead Harley shit. And they would rip this shit out of that van. They'd have, it looked like a pile of crap. And they would start piecing bikes together. And by the end of the day, they had 4 or 5 bikes just cobbled together, sitting on the ground with everything you needed to make it go. Not all screwed tight together. It was a, you know, it had 1 or 2 threads holding the oil tank and this and that. But you could see it was all there. Sometimes they'd even make the motor run. It was like fucking amazing, those guys, you know. They were always there. We would buy some shit. My friend Walter from Super Cycles on Staten. I got to talk to him about them. He'd probably know who those gentlemen were. There was some cool. We'd have fun, you know. Me and Larry, we both had Cycles, New York City. That was tattooed on us by some just like a carny guy at a swap meet down in Pennsylvania somewhere, because we were having such a grand old time that weekend. We were like, some dude was like, hey, I'll tattoo you guys. And we were like, me and Larry looked at each other, fuck it, let's go, you know. Let's not be snobs. Let's just fuck it, we'll put some ink on us, you know.
Granger's a bad motherfucker.
Hey, how about Jimmy Spence?
Jimmy Spence?
Yeah.
Okay, now me and Jimmy go back.
You've known Jimmy a long time.
Yeah, I've known Jimmy since
And I think you guys are
1970,
great friends.
72, 73. And we've been friends ever since. And absolutely the best Harley mechanic. I'll put him against anybody on the planet. I don't give a shit who they are. And all these guys talk shit like they know everything. Jimmy knows more than all these guys. Never brags. Never talks bad about any other, other guys that don't know what they're doing. He'll never say it. Never. Jimmy is just a cat. He's the man, And he's
Jimmy stops here every day.
every day. I see Jimmy every day, and I'm proud to know him. He's a good friend of mine. Yeah,
That's cool.
it's one of them lifelong pals.
Right. You'll have to have one, right?
That's right, man. It's important, Friends are important,
Of course they are.
And motorcycle friends are usually like the best you're gonna find.
Steg, New York City hardcore. Lunatic, the Axeman. 7'6" attitude and like a 5'5" body. Haven't spent a lot of time with Steg. Always been a fan. Every time I've ever seen him anywhere, incredibly nice, incredibly humble. Always shakes my hand, always hugs me, always asks how everything's going in my life, and I'm glad that he's still doing what, he was one of the godfathers, you know what I mean?
I knew guys that were like incredible musicians and shit, and then they gave it up because they found, they gave themselves a certain amount of time. Oh, if I'm not, I found the record company, they took notice of you. Yeah, some of these bands at the beginning, they took notice of us all. But once we had X amount of years under our belt, and they saw we were a real band, we were going out and touring on our own. We didn't have no albums. We were putting cassettes out by ourselves through the tape traders back then. Like I say, again, there was no internet, which makes it easy now. We used tape traders. We had fanzines, which were certain pieces of paper just stapled together that talked about the scene. We went and played these places. After X amount of time, the record company comes along. Now they see you're a band. Well, we're going to take a little chance. They see that you've stayed together. They see that you've put the work in. They see that you've grown. Now they're willing to take a little shot. Nothing happens overnight. They only give it to those guys that they see are willing to go beyond that time frame and take. Then they dangle the carrot in front of you. First they might give you just one song on a compilation album. They throw it out there, see how people like the different shit. A couple years later, now you got a couple more years under your belt. You didn't collapse. We'll give you guys once to do a little record for us, And there's how it began. And I knew these guys that sold the bike. They got rid of the guitars, and stopped doing the band and got a haircut and cleaned up and got a job and, got a house and look at Richie. He did it all and he did it on his art. I did mine. I raised my son on my art. He grew up to be a good kid. He's not in trouble all the time, He doesn't get in trouble. He's a good kid, He's an artist himself and, raised a good kid. It didn't harm him. He's not a druggie. He's not an alcoholic. If anything, it might have scared him, not, because he saw so much, maybe. but I never lied to him, and I was always honest with him, and we have to this day a very good relationship. I see him all the time. I'm in his life, he's in my life, you know what I mean?
The story of, I guess, my biggest influence as far as a teacher goes, and I tell the story all the time, was my art teacher knew that if I wasn't in art, I wasn't in school. So, you know, he'd be like, hey Rich, what class are you supposed to be in? I'd be, oh, I'm supposed to be in history. And he would write me a pass to the history teacher and say, hey, you know, Rich is helping me stretch canvases or something like that. Just so that I was in school. So that's the only schooling I ever went to. And if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have graduated high school.
Pete, go back to LA.